Good evening, everyone. James Hancock here. I'm back to review episode 11 of season 2 of the Orville, an episode called Lasting Impressions. I'm a little bit late because this is one of those weekends where there are so many new movies and shows that I want to review, I kind of didn't know where to start. I just got back from seeing Us in the theater, and that review should be up first thing in the morning, and I still want to review Dragged Across Concrete, The Dirt on Netflix, as well as the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. I probably should have just done a giant live stream to discuss them all, but for now I'm keeping the reviews separate, and because the Orville remains my favorite show on television, I figured this was the best place to start. At any rate, when it comes to this show, I know that the Identity two-parter was the big home run so far this season, but I have to say that these are the kind of episodes that really define the Orville. These character-based smaller episodes have so much heart and soul, not to mention brilliant comedy. But before I start ranting and raving about this particular episode, I do want to ring a small alarm bell. I saw a lot of tweets over the last couple days from folks like Scott Grimes encouraging people to use the proper hashtags and to tag actors when discussing the show online. Maybe I'm paranoid, but that sounds to me a lot like season 3 is far from a sure thing. I'm also a little bewildered by this release schedule where we're not seeing the next new episode until April 11th. Perhaps the thinking is on their end that in the interim, more people might jump on board and get caught up. In any event, we have 3 episodes left of this season, so let's all bang the drum as loudly as we can so that this beautiful, amazing show can continue for many years to come. So this was another fantastic episode focusing on Gordon Malloy, who, by the way, I just learned appeared as Eric in the 3rd season opener of Star Trek The Next Generation, although his scenes apparently were cut, but he's absolutely adorable in his quick scene. But as far as this episode is concerned, it explores the unintended consequences of when 21st century culture gets introduced to the Orville via a time capsule. They could have just as easily called this episode Love and Cigarettes, but that perhaps might have been a little too on the nose. But we see Malloy falling unexpectedly head over heels in love after an iPhone is reactivated by Lamar and his team. Malloy uses the text, pictures, videos, etc. to reconstruct the life of a woman named Laura within the simulator on the Orville, and before Malloy knows it, he has been completely, totally struck by the Thunderbolt. I have to admit, I fell in love with her as well. As soon as she started singing That's All I've Got to Say, I about started weeping. That song comes straight from one of my favorite childhood cartoons, The Last Unicorn. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely required viewing, but I was almost completely overwhelmed by a tidal wave of nostalgia during that particular scene. But it doesn't take long before Malloy's infatuation and love affair starts affecting his job performance, and his friends give him a little tough love and a reality check. In a particularly funny moment, Tyler asks if Malloy's been working too hard. Kelly says, "Gordon? Never." I mean, the line was absolutely hysterical, but it was all the more funny because those 2 actors got engaged back in January. The big debate, however, between all the crew members is to what degree Laura is real. Ed wisely states that the universe is not governed by individual perception, but Malloy is convinced that Laura is real and that she's not a simulation written by one individual. That said, the spell is ruined when Malloy tries to remove Laura's fiancé from the simulation, only to see that her personality and her love of music is negatively impacted by that manipulation. But then in an absolutely beautiful scene that nearly brought me to tears, Malloy goes to say goodbye to Laura and he joins her for a performance on stage of, once again, That's All I've Got to Say, and their ability to harmonize together absolutely floored me. This is the 2nd time this season that Scott Grimes has absolutely soared as a singer on the show, so I think he just needs to hurry up and make a musical already because he can sing his ass off. But as moving as that story might have been, the real showstopper this episode was seeing Bortis and Klyden becoming hopelessly addicted to smoking cigarettes. While initially they just kind of like the smell and Klyden just eats one outright, they soon get the hang of it and they just start smoking 24/7. And just seeing Bortis on the bridge smoking like a chimney, carrying his ashtray, I don't know why, I was absolutely howling. But during a medical exam, as it turns out, Mocklins are very susceptible to nicotine addiction. And as it turns out, Klyden and Bortis are the first 2 Mocklins ever to get addicted to tobacco, so Dr. Finn's kind of an unknown terrain. And as Klyden and Bortis try to go cold turkey, all hell breaks loose. They're hiding cigarettes and pillows and around the apartment. They're smoking in the airlocks. And then during one particularly grumpy meal, the shouting match ensues, as well as just a physical brawl, and it nearly trashes the place, till finally Dr. Finn swoops in for the rescue, asks who wants the shot. They both raise their hands in resignation. But as always, Bortis continues to be a comedy goldmine. So in closing, I'll just repeat myself and say I absolutely love and adore this show. It's my favorite ongoing show on TV. No show makes me smile and laugh and have the kind of fun that I experience while watching The Orville. So please, if you love this show, do everything in your power to spread the word, because I don't think we should take it for granted that there's going to be a season 3, in particular during this strange Fox-Disney merger where we don't quite know who's going to get laid off, what franchises and what shows are going to stick around. So this is the time where everybody who loves this show needs to make their enthusiasm very clear to the outside world so that the powers that be at Disney will pay attention. But that's all I got for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. If you want to talk more about the Orville, find me on Twitter at Colbrax. There's a link in the description below. But can't thank you enough for watching my video. I'll be back a few more times over the next day or two. I'm going to do the best I can to kind of stay on top of things, but there's a lot of shows and movies I need to see over the next 24 hours, and it's a little overwhelming. But thanks as always for watching. I really appreciate it. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.